We have to be prepared to fight alone, Ukraine and Europe together.
Why are you so pessimistic?
I have no possibility to say that something is impossible.
If we speak about these mineral deals,
To get Europe involved would be, I believe, in the best interest of Ukraine.
what Europe or other partners can do,
Confiscating Russian frozen assets.
but we've heard from President Macron that it is against the international law.
No, it's not. It's against some of the other countries' interests.
Mr. Landsbergis, it's a pleasure to welcome you and meet you here in Ukraine. Thank you very much for your time. Since the end of last year, you are no longer Minister of Foreign Affairs, but still you are here in Kyiv at the anniversary of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. So I will start with saying thank you to you and also the friendly Lithuanian people for all the continued support.
You will have that always.
Thank you very much. Well, I think that we should start with the most obvious topic. It's been a month since Donald Trump took his office as the US president. And I think that this is a topic that influences probably the global affairs. It already started and it will probably be continuing. Over the last months, we had a chance to talk to some American experts on how they understand what is going on, and it will also be very interesting to listen to some kind of European perspective. So if to analyze this month, your first conclusions, if we take these statements from the US administration on Russia, Ukraine, and Europe.
Well, this is an unprecedented time. Europe, together with the United States, has a very long history. We've been allies as long as we can remember. We had many wars, many conflicts in the world where we stood shoulder to shoulder together. So to find ourselves in a situation where Russia would vote with the United States together in United Nations against Europe and Ukraine, that has never happened. So this is completely new time. Of course, the biggest problem is that we don't have a lot of time to prepare for this new reality. It is happening as we go. Every day we found out something new and we have to be more prepared. So my only thing is that at this stage, and my advice to Europeans and Ukrainians, is that we have to prepare the time that we are alone in this. Europe and Ukraine are alone against Putin. This is not ideal, but very few things are ideal in this world. What I would like to stress here is that it might not be forever so. It is possible, and I'm hearing from our friends in America that that President Trump changes his mind, adapts to the new position, goes back. It is possible that would happen as well. So when I'm asked, did we lose United States, I will say, lose is forever. It might have disappeared for a moment, but not lost. But this period, we have to be prepared to fight alone, Ukraine and Europe together.
If we speak about preparation, is that okay that we, and Europe in particular, started preparing after we actually hear and heard these statements? Why, for example, European Union didn't start doing this earlier, consider these 50-50 options?
No, it's a very good question. Europe had a lot of time to prepare. There's no question about it. The war started in 2014. Still, a lot of people thought that, it will be possible to deal with Putin. He will get Crimea. He will definitely not go further. He went further. Now, there are still people who think that, he will get Donbass. He will definitely not go further. Nobody in Lithuania believes that. So Europe is, in a way, I'm not trying to defend Europe because it's undefendable in the political sense. Europe either has to stand up now and prove that it is able to defend Ukraine and also itself through Ukraine, or it might no longer exist. That is how serious I see the situation. Because if the deal is made between Putin and Trump, and Europe is unable to offer a better deal for Ukraine, it will be a question, can Europe do anything if Putin continues? If he continues in Lithuania, if he continues in, Moldova, whatever. So it might be the last hours of Europe. Very well. I mean, it could be that.
You said that we are now alone in what we do, in particularly in support of Ukraine. When you say this, do you see the United States separately, so they are alone as well? Or you imagine that there may be any kind of a informal union or deal between the United States and Russia?
Well, the problem is that I have no possibility to say that something is impossible. As I said at the beginning, it is possible that President Trump, come Wednesday, he would tweet something like, I've always supported Ukraine, Zelensky is my best friend, I will give that much, equipment, weapons to Ukraine. Little chance, but it is possible. Can he form some sort of a union with Putin? Yeah, he can. And there's very little that we can do. Putin now has Donald Trump in a good position. He promises him anything that President Trump is asking, and in turn he gets what he wants. So it's a horror movie, geopolitical horror movie.
Do you have enough grounds to state what you state? I mean, we hear very different viewpoints. Somebody say that these are all just preliminary contacts. Mm-hmm. These are all just some preliminary preparations of President Trump's administration towards how this peace deal may look like. Why are you so pessimistic?
Because I see one particular problem, from a tactical perspective. From a tactical perspective, when you come to negotiations, if you say that you want the negotiations to be completed very fast, very soon, you give it very little time, it gives the other side an enormous leverage on you. Because if you want to purchase an apartment, if you say, I want to purchase now, you will pay the highest price. Because that's the only thing. If you say that I want it in a year, then you can negotiate on the price. Right? And most likely the price will be much better for you, because the time is the most expensive thing in the negotiations. And when President Trump said that I want negotiations to be now, this is where Putin can offer, ask for any price. And that's why he's asking new election, territories to be recognized, neutrality, who knows what comes next. He can ask, if you want a really, really fast deal, I need demilitarization. I need US troops withdrawn from Europe. He can ask that, if you want a fast deal. Because Putin controls time. He can say, I will, if you don't give that, well, you won't have a fast deal. We'll delay. And that makes Trump look bad at home. So this is where, on a tactical level, you can give anything. You can say, okay, let's talk about NATO. Let's talk about all the things, right? Talk. Because you don't know where you would settle. If you give away time, it's like giving away your keys of a car and expecting, yourself to drive.
We heard that all these first statements of Donald Trump towards Ukraine or Ukraine's President Zelensky, they also faced criticism back in the United States as well, among the representatives of Congress in particular. Why do you think that Trump may agree on everything that Putin offers just because he needs this quick deal? Some consequences of such a quick deal may cause him troubles back at home, no?
It depends. I mean, if he controls the narrative, that I promised quick deal, I got the quick deal. There are not too many people in United States who, understand the intricacies or care much about the, where the front line is, what is the actual status of, occupied territories is. That is a huge problem. just to give you an idea. So when it comes to Ukraine, for 3 years, and myself personally, we have been fighting for words in UN, in EU. Words matter, because if you omit something from a statement, it gives an idea that maybe some things are not so important for you. So when President Trump and his administration said, okay, we're looking for a sustainable peace, long-term peace. And that is it. They're not talking about sovereignty. They're not talking about territorial integrity. They're not talking about democracy, all the other things. So I'm using an example. Lithuania, when we were occupied in 1945, we had sustainable peace. There was no front line. Nobody was shooting, but there was no Lithuania. So you could make a statement that we want sustainable peace, but there will be no Ukraine. So my point is that it is so important for us to continue saying we need, yes, peace is very important, it has to be fair. Ukraine has to be sovereign, being able to make its own decisions. Territorial integrity is an imperative of any country. Nobody can recognize changing borders by force. And these matters, I'm not sure whether they are important to Trump. That is my biggest worry.
Okay, so the biggest question is how Ukraine or any Ukrainian ally may influence current US administration in their viewpoints,
yes,
their positions, how it's gonna continue and how it must be going.
Absolutely. Well, I think that one of the options that we have now is try to convince President Trump that we need time. Return the argument of time back. Take it back. Explain to his voters it is impossible to have a deal fast. Win time.
Who must do this? I mean, it looks like US President Trump doesn't really want to listen to Ukraine's President Zelensky, at least until he signs the mineral deal. Is he listening to anybody in Europe?
He is. He is listening. He's listening to President Macron and others. But when I'm out of politics, I only can give advice. So I cannot, because I'm not at the table. What I would advise is that now we are following, and President Trump, he offers an agenda. He says, I will make a deal with Putin. And we're shocked, right? So we try to, influence him. I suggest that we have a parallel path. We have a right? Europe and Ukraine can offer their own peace deal. Europe can offer Ukraine another mineral deal. I mean, there is no rule that we have only to follow what Putin and Trump agrees. We have money, we have power, we have armies. Yes, not as efficient, but we can do things. So offering our own ideas into the agenda, into the global agenda, would force others to react, So President Trump would need to face a reality. Europe says, we're not going to remove sanctions. That's it. This is out of the question. We're not talking about this. So that means that Trump cannot promise Putin that the sanctions will be removed. Now he thinks that he can, because we are kind of negotiating, even not at the table. So with all of this, I think that we can get us back into the action, slow things down a little bit, and make sure that Ukrainian perspective is better represented in the conversation.
I think why it is such a big deal if we have the United States or we don't have the United States is because the United States were one of the biggest supporters of Ukraine during these 3 years. And I think it is a logical question what Europe or other partners can do in terms of military support and maybe even financial support of Ukraine if we suggest that there is no active involvement of the United States.
The United States is a very important partner. Without it, it's very difficult to do things. When you look at the numbers, they tell a bit different story. There is a reason why myself and quite a lot of others were rather critical about the previous administration. 60 billion euros that have been spent that have been spent on their own industry that in turn supported Ukraine. Sounds like a lot of money, but in reality it's not. War in Afghanistan, 1.5 trillion. War in Iraq, 1.9 trillion. 60 billion for United States. I think they spend on roads to clean roads a bit more per year.
Yeah, but during the new administration, there may be like zero.
Yeah, but let me tell you. In France, they've spent about 100 billion per year on subsidies on energy. And 7 billion on Ukraine. When COVID hit, Germany spent 250 billion to support its businesses. So what I'm trying to say is that Europe has enormous resources, way larger than 60 billion that United States spent just on its own. Germany alone would able to pick that up and would not feel that much. If the whole Europe would add to its bill 60 billion, wouldn't feel. When COVID hit Europe, we spent 750 billion on our businesses. We're unable to spend it. It's just too much money. We cannot spend it. Still, a lot of money is lying somewhere because it's unspent. Because nobody is able to absorb that much money. So to spend on Ukraine 60 billion, it is not a problem, I can tell you, financially.
So what does it depend on? It's about political will?
Decision.
Whose?
European.
Maybe, I don't know, some specific countries?
No, it is still Europe, right? So Europe has to decide how to spend it and whether to borrow or not to borrow. So two options that I see. One option, which from my perspective is very easy, technically, not politically, is confiscating Russian frozen assets. 190 billion euros. 3 times more than Americans spend on weapons. 3 times more. And we have it.
But we've heard from President Macron that it is against the international law.
No, it's not. It's against some of the other countries' interests. It's against the interests of China. It's against an interest of Saudi Arabia.
Could you explain it a little bit more as a person who's been inside this EU bureaucratic system? So when we hear from French President Macron that we cannot confiscate these Russian frozen assets which are around the bank's account around the European Union, so the reason is not the international law?
No. The reason is that so the thinking is that if we are confiscating frozen assets of a dictator who attacked his neighbor, other dictators who are not attacking their neighbors are getting upset that if they ever attack their neighbors, Europe might be able to confiscate their assets as well. So for them, it is a bad signal. My question is, so are you really planning to invade your neighbors? We're trying to persuade you not to do it. It's bad business. Well, what they are saying, okay, we're maybe not planning to invade our neighbors, maybe we are, but we would then sell all the euros that we have and switch to dollars. Since they have a lot of reserves in euros, that might affect the currency stability. And this is the reason why we're stuck, right? But it's an economic question, but it's also a values question. Because from the legal perspective, the war, the Russian war against Ukraine, is an acknowledged fact by the international law. So Russian money can be used to rebuild and arm Ukraine. One can maybe need to argue that in court, in court, but then again, it is doable. But so the problem is a bit different. It's more political. The other thing is that we can borrow. If we're unable to find a solution how to help Ukraine with the Russian assets, we can then, convince our voters that instead of taking Russian money, we'll take our own money, our children's money. Because, loan is But the future, our children would pay it. Difficult to explain. My children would have questions. Why I did not take Russian money, but I took theirs. But okay, we did not agree. So we could do that. And then it, again, not a very difficult solution. Political, then we have the money, we have a loan, we can spend it on Ukraine.
If we speak about this mineral deals, the United States are offering this rare earth mineral deal for Ukraine, and there are pretty tough discussions, as it looks like from the media. And we also heard this week that the European Union is also trying to reach Ukraine with such an offer. What's your impression of it, of this whole idea?
First of all, I don't like that it's pushed on so fast. I understand that the Ukrainian government is under enormous pressure. The latest deal that I've seen just recently, it sounds a little bit better than, American deal, that sounds a little bit better than the previous one. In general, it is very difficult to understand what is happening, honestly. It is, it's like extortion. When you see your ally in trouble, rather than helping him, you take the last that it has.
But I think that the US administration, they are pretty sincere about what they want to get. They say that Ukraine needs to pay its debts.
Yeah, but look, United States are providing weapons to Israel. I've never heard Americans asking for the money back. They have been doing that for 40 years. To stabilize the region, they have been providing money to Egypt. I have never heard that they would ask money back. Additionally, now the latest, when the United States stops all the assistance, the aid money, right? So it's not military, but like diplomatic and humanitarian assistance. They did not stop that in Egypt. So it is a loan, it is a grant, what it is. So, from the consistency perspective, it is not very consistent. So I made a suggestion that I think that maybe Ukrainian government could look into. Especially if European Union is offering some assistance. Ukraine is a candidate country to European Union. Already after the war started, already with an access to single market. I'm sure that a deal of 500 billion euros might have an effect on single market. So it might have an effect on the European Union. I think it would be wise to ask an advice from Brussels. Does it affect? Is it correctly written? Europe has probably the biggest legal muscle in the world that can be offered to Ukraine, because Ukraine is a candidate country. So we're not offering it to a third country. You're our partner. To assess. It's almost impossible to withstand the pressure from the United States for any single country, because they're that big.
If we just talk about this potential European mineral deal, may this be a part of some kind of a project of the peace deal on the side of the EU, what you mentioned?
Yeah, it could be. You see, I doubt that Europe is looking for an extortion deal from Ukraine. And President Macron was very clear yesterday in White House. He said it wasn't a loan what we gave to Ukraine. We did it because of us, right? Because of our security. So we gave it. It's a grant. So there is just that. We're not trying to get something out of it. But opening, and when Ukraine joins the EU, so every European country and a company will have an ability to invest in Ukraine. That is how Europe works, right? In Lithuania, Swedish, German companies are investing every day. Not because we allow them, but because that is how Europe works. So I have not seen the European offer, but my main point is that to get Europe involved would be, I believe, in the best interest of Ukraine.
The idea of sending European soldiers to Ukraine are being widely discussed now. All of the European leaders who have been in Kyiv on February 24th, they were being asked about this. In your opinion, will this contribute to peace if it becomes a reality?
It very much depends on the conditions. I'm worried when European leaders say that we have to ask Russians for permission to post troops in Ukraine. Because I don't think that it would work. Putin can say, okay, I allow troops to be in Lviv. And then he continues attacking in Donbass. So you have troops in Ukraine, but it does not provide any stability and security. So what provides stability and security is deterrence. That Putin knows that if he tries to cross the line next time, not just Ukrainians, but French, UK, Lithuania, Poland, whoever, will attack him back. And, I was told yesterday during the conference that, Ukrainian troops are better prepared than, that probably European troops. And in many cases, I agree with that. 3 years of war, a horrible war that, clearly creates a different type of soldier than we in peacetime. But for Putin, the decision is, now he's fighting one country. And it's not a very easy war. If we all tell him that if he crosses the line, he would be fighting 20, that is a different equation. So if Europe is able to say this, 20 countries, 27 countries, however, will be joining Ukraine. If Putin continues, that is a deterrent. That is a recipe for long-term peace. If we're saying we'll stay where Putin allows us, that is not a good deal.
Do you think that Putin is afraid of fighting any other country except Ukraine?
Well, I think that Germany, again, theoretically speaking, is a very formidable force if it starts its engines. It hasn't started yet, but it has everything. Industry, capacity, people, knowledge, everything.
But I think it sounds like a nightmare for Germany to fight war with Russia.
It does, of course, for everybody. But then they have to ask the question, when is the time when you will still do it? If you're not doing that when Russians in Donbass, will you do that when Russians are in Kiev? Will you do that when Russians are in Vilnius, Poland, or in Berlin?
Do they, in your opinion, do they ask these questions?
Not yet.
Themselves?
Not yet.
Mr. Landsbergis, thank you very much for this sincere conversation, and I wish you a safe stay in Kyiv.
Thank you so much.